Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be discussing some of the reasons why I think that the Ryzen 5000 series launch wasn't quite as good as we'd expected it to be. Keep watching to find out why. Okay, so it's been over 24 hours since the AMD 5000 press release, which most of us watched on YouTube, and if you haven't watched it already, then feel free to click on the link up here and you can watch the reaction video and follow along with me as you witnessed a pretty much historic moment in AMD's history, where they've now basically toppled the king that was Intel. So if you're looking for a gaming chip now, the Ryzen 5000 series with its enhanced instructions per clock is now the gaming king. But is it the value king? Personally, I don't think it is anymore, and I think there is still a lot of mileage to be had in the outgoing 3000 series, which we'll explain a lot more in the following video. So the 5000 series does look fantastic on paper. We've got a roughly 20% uptick in performance against the 3000 series, and depending on the game and their settings, you can get anything up to 50% faster in some titles, again as shown in the video. Obviously, this is AMD's own promotional work, so do take it with a slight grain of salt. They will try and show things to their best advantage, but obviously showing the negative side of it is a little bit odd. So they are admitting that there are some titles they could do better in and some productivity titles they could do better in. But overall, generally, the 5000 series does really wipe the floor with both the 3000 series and Intel's offerings. The downside being is, in my personal opinion, the pricing. Originally, the prices for the 5000 series, as they've shown for the manufacturer's recommended retail prices, are, in my opinion, a little bit on the high side. Generally, if you look at the initial releases, the initial release prices of the 3000 series against the 5000 series, if you look at model for model across the families, we're looking at roughly a $50 increase across the board, which, okay, fine, $50 in the grand scheme of things when you're looking at maybe a $700 processor, isn't a massive amount of money. But towards the lower end, at the Ryzen 3600 range, $50 there is actually quite a large chunk of the overall price. That is taking into account initial offering prices against each other. But at the moment, we're not going to be comparing that. What most of us are going to be comparing it with, as it comes up to November the 5th, is what we can actually buy processors for from the previous range against the new releases. So if we take into example the Ryzen 3600, at the moment on Amazon US, we can pick those up for around about $200. Whereas if you go for a Ryzen 5000 series, the 5600X, you're looking at $299 or $300 for argument's sake. So that is a difference of basically $100 for not really a great deal of extra. So we're looking at a third extra cost-wise and maybe a 20% increase in speed. For me personally, I don't think that really does tell the entire story, but certainly if you're looking at it purely from a purse strings point of view, it does make a massive difference. If you were to go with the 3600, which we know is a great gaming chip overall and really good for most productivity tasks as well, that extra $100 that you would have spent on your 5600 could well be the difference between you getting a mid-tier graphics card to a higher tiered graphics card, in which most cases, if you are into gaming, £100 more on a graphics card is going to get you a lot more than 20% performance out of your games, at least generally. Obviously as well, if certain games are more GPU dependent than CPU dependent, if you're upgrading from a 3000 series, you probably aren't going to see those massive increases. So it does look to be a very mixed bag. It's really unfortunate at the moment that we're in these COVID times, so pricing is all over the place. But if we take things back even just a few months ago, we could pick up the Ryzen 5 3600 for around about $150. If you compare that now with almost $300 for the 5600, that is a 50% price increase for, again, roughly a 20% performance improvement, which is completely crazy. Now I know this happens, you do pay that little bit of extra and you do get that little extra sting in your wallet for being on the cutting edge of technology, but is it really worth that much money? Personally, I don't believe it is. So let's take a look a little bit further at the product stack at the 3800X. At the moment on Amazon US, I managed to find one of those for £339, which I think is fantastic value for money. If we look at the 5800X, we are looking at pretty much an additional $100 on top of that, at the estimated recommended retail price of $449. Now, something else to look into as far as we're looking into price performance, also we've got the included extras. Now, most of the 3000 range came with a either stock cooler, be it the Wraith Prism, whatever the case may be, depending on your processor. From what we can tell, all of the 5600, the 5800, 5900 range don't come with coolers included. So that is going to be an additional cost, which you do have to take into account. You can't just buy this processor and your motherboard and your whole system and it will work. You do need to purchase that separate cooler. And realistically, if you're going to buy a cooler, you're not going to buy a cheapo. You're going to probably spend maybe $30 or $40 on a relatively good cooler. Again, which takes the price of this particular platform up to another level. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still much cheaper than what you can get from Intel. So if you bought an Intel chip and you went for the Z490 platform to get somewhere near the same level of performance and overclocking ability as maybe the B550 range, then yes, you are still saving money against Intel. But it does seem that we are paying an extraordinary premium for what doesn't seem to be that much of a premium product. Yes, we've got a brand new architecture, or at least a reworked architecture, which for most people is going to provide a lot of performance. But is it really worth that much extra money? Moving up another level, we got the 3900X, which at the moment in the US you can pick up for $429, which again is pretty decent value for money. Taking into account, then you've got the 5900X at a whopping $549, a difference of approximately $120. Again, $120 is a lot of money, and essentially, at the moment, that could be, again, the jump between a certain level of graphics card to the next tier up, or maybe even an extra 16 gigs of RAM, which is going to make a big difference to your system overall in terms of responsiveness, especially in those high-end tasks. If you're getting a high-end processor, maybe you're getting it for video editing or something like that, you'll certainly be better off buying 32 gigs of RAM and going with the 3900 rather than you would with the 5900. And again, obviously, we do take into account we don't get a cooler. So immediately, for that kind of level of performance in that sort of processor at 105 watts, you're going to be looking at $50 for a cooler realistically, if not more. So then again, that takes up to closer to $600 for a processor and cooler combo, which is considerably more than the £429 that you can buy the 3900X on Amazon US today. So let's shoot for stars and go right to the very top. If we were looking at a 3950X and you're looking at the present or 5000 series replacement for that in the 5950 XT, which does look to be an absolute beast of a chip, the difference actually isn't that much. And if you are looking at that certain level of performance at the very, very top end, I think actually this is probably the best value on the entire stack, weirdly, even though it is over $700. At the moment, you can pick up the 3950X on Amazon US for just a shade over $700, maybe $705. Again, you might want to invest in some additional cooling on that, so do take that into consideration. But also the 5950 XT with a recommended retail price of $799, being around about $95 to $100 more, I actually think isn't that bad. If you're taking considering the price point, percentage wise, it isn't a massive amount. What we're looking 15% or something, which again isn't a lot considering you possibly get 20% plus improvement in performance. So for me, that is the best value for money out of the entire stack. It's going to be really interesting to see what does come out later on. We have been told that there will be more processors coming out, although this is unofficial at the moment, and AMD have certainly said there's nothing on their roadmap currently, which obviously we know is essentially BS, because there's bound to be a 5500, a 5300, 5100, all those kinds of things, and possibly some other placeholders in between just to break it up a little bit. A standard 5900, maybe a 5700, those are all very likely to happen in the very near future. But I think as far as things go at the moment, my recommendations really stand at the moment. If you're looking at the lower end, then really the 3600 is still fantastic value for money, and performance wise you aren't going to get a great deal out of it more with the 5600, and you do get to save that $100. And if you are at that budget price point where every dollar counts, that extra $100 can be put to use much better in a graphics card, or maybe better RAM, faster RAM, better motherboard, those kinds of things. If you're looking even lower down the chain, it may be the sort of 3100, 3300, there isn't any option at all, so you do really have to stay with those. In the mid-ground, it does get a little bit dicey. If you're planning on an upgrade, whole new system, then possibly is worth looking at the 5000 series if you've got that extra money and you want to get that baller status with your brand new rig. But for a lot of us, if you've already got a motherboard and you're looking at upgraded, maybe you've got a B450 chipset, you may still not be able to actually upgrade that anyway. Most of the new BIOSes officially won't be ready until after the new year, so that is going to hold a lot of people back. So if you're looking for the 5000 series and you've got a current setup, you are going to have to be very careful. So don't just think, yes, I've got a really nice B450 Tomahawk motherboard and I'm going to go and get myself a nice new shiny 5000 series processor, because there is a distinct possibility that on November the 5th or November the 6th, whenever you get your processor, it's very unlikely to work unless MSI and some of the other board manufacturers really do pull their fingers out and release those beta BIOSes, which, as we've been told, are going to be beta, so don't expect them to be ultra reliable. And being that this is a relatively new architecture, I think for most people reliability is going to be key. So if you are looking at these new 5000 processors, then certainly do be looking at the B550 and X570 motherboards for ultimate compatibility, or also do still consider those older 3000 chips. For me personally, the 3900X still does hold a lot of weight, and I think is the go-to for most content creators. If you're into gaming on a budget, then the 3600 certainly does fit the bill. And if you're on the ultra budget, then the 3100 is still the golden standard as far as I'm concerned. So there you go, there's been some of my thoughts on the AMD 5000 release, launch, etc. and all compatibility with motherboards, which I think is going to cause us rather a headache as time goes on. Obviously, if you do want any help or information on compatibility with your motherboards, BIOSes, processors, etc., please do feel free to join us in our Discord chat. Links for that will be in the video description below. Also, if you want to, you can discuss this topic in a lot more detail on our live stream, which will be going out on Saturday at 9 PM UK time. So please feel free if you've got any comments or questions, or maybe you've got a different point of view. You think the 5000 series is the best thing since sliced bread, then certainly do let us know in the live stream. So I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the live stream. Thanks for watching.